trying different things, partly in the spirit of learning. So this is the latest time that we've ever hosted a call. We thought we'd experiment with whether that's more convenient. I see Chris Marvin has joined us from Hawaii. So this is maybe that's the reason you're here, right, brother? Otherwise, it's usually 3 in the morning your time.
Yeah, man, it's
So
noon. You nailed it. Thanks.
it's noon. Good. Yeah, happy to accommodate you. And our friends from Alaska, I see you, Brian, and others. So we play with the times, and then I think this one came as an email. Sometimes we'll populate it as a calendar hold. So trying different things. So send us feedback on what's working for you or what you think would be better. These monthly calls are really just a chance for us to convene. Sometimes we'll bring in guest speakers. Sometimes we'll just have conversation amongst ourselves. Um, we don't have any guest speakers today, but we did always want to keep the line open so that we can exchange ideas, talk about what's going on around the country, and get your thoughts as well. So I'll give a couple kind of introductory comments, and then Eric, I'll kick it over to you, and then we'll kind of do a round robin and hear what's cooking in your neck of the woods. Um, on a big kind of picture, uh, I'd say perspective, the organization's doing great. We've got volunteers now in 48 states. We're close to having volunteers also in West Virginia. We actually have the retired Adjutant General, General Hoyer, who served under three governors and a long duration as the Adjutant General of the West Virginia National Guard, is a big advocate for what we're doing. So he's not going to be maybe the face of the volunteer effort on the ground, but he is absolutely eager to advance the Final Five voting effort in the state of West Virginia, and he's got the right credible networks to do it. He's seeing kind of the extremism plague the state, and he thinks it's really unproductive. So he is taking on the effort for us there, but we don't have any volunteers on the ground yet, so we're looking for those. And then North Dakota is also a place that we're trying to identify a couple of volunteers that are interested in this issue set. Otherwise, we've got about 470 volunteers representing 48 states, which is awesome. Thanks to all of you who individually invite people to join the network. It really is, onesies and twosies. And we can be extremely impactful with a few committed volunteers in every single state. We know that. I mean, that is really where we derive success is a few committed volunteers in every single state. So keep pushing on that. And I'd say the organization continues to be valuable for the movement. We hear from state campaign partners all the time the invaluable role that veterans can play at really key moments, and that's how we think about our leverage is we can show up with the right message and the right people at the right moment to really make something impactful happen, get a meeting, have a conversation, create media exposure. And then in the last week alone, we've had fantastic media exposure in Denver, Montana, Washington, D.C., Idaho, across the map. There's just so many things happening. So we think of ourselves as a platform. We create the place for you to show up, but really the engagement is going to happen based on what you decide to do in your home state. And we're here to support that, but we don't want to get in the way of that either. So the organization is doing strong. The movement is growing. A few things that are happening at the national level. Unite America is really the organization that I think is bringing a lot of maturity and acceleration to the election reform movement. They're based out of Denver. Nick Troiano is the founding executive director. Ran for Congress as an independent. Uh, Georgetown undergrad, impressive guy. They just released a documentary called Majority Rules, and it's really compelling, very inspiring. Eric was at a viewing party. I had a chance to view it in Scottsdale. They're going to be on a national tour with Majority Rules, and it's basically a case study of Alaska and the personalities. And Sarah Palin features heavily in it. Mary Peltola features heavily in it. Lisa Murkowski features heavily in it, and it basically just sort of shows you the kind of politics you get through a reformed election model that brings independence fully into the process. And it's powerful. I mean, I think you watch the movie and you're just absolutely convicted that we're on the right side of history and doing important work. So that's an asset that's going to be coming to a city near you. There is also a lot happening this election cycle. So, we put out a detailed kind of note on this one, but there are, and Eric can get more into the weeds, and you all will know more than I know, frankly. But there are 7 ballot initiatives coming in November, 5 of which basically, get you to the Alaska model. So if you think in terms of raw numbers, if we defend Alaska, which is going to be a fight, and Brian, you can maybe illuminate sort of where you see it's at, where it's at. If we defend Alaska, pass Final Five voting in Nevada, and then let's say you put Montana in play, you put Idaho in play, and you put Colorado in play, we could end this year with 5 states on the way to implementing Final Five voting, which frees 10 U.S. senators from the kind of toxic partisan duopoly, free to do what they think is in the best interest of the American people, even if it isn't perfectly nested with what their party base wants. So we think that's incredibly powerful. In some ways, that has been our 20-year vision, and it's actually available this election cycle if we are successful in those states. So I am very optimistic. I'm like the one guy who goes into rooms and says, I can't wait for November, because I'm optimistic about the future of America, not because of who's on the top of the ticket, but because of the ballot initiatives that are being advanced in states across the country. And again, huge credit to all of you for helping make that happen. So we can get more in the weeds on that, but I'll just remind you of a few other things that we as an organization have for you, and we can put links in the chat. We have an overview deck that really tells the story about what we're doing, that you should, you can pull it up as a hyperlink and just email it to folks. It's just veteransforallvoters.org/overview. We have a video /video. We have a messaging guide /messaging. And these assets are just kind of shelf ready. They're current. We don't use PowerPoints because PowerPoints get lost. They're heavy and they get obsolete. So we keep all of our files live and current. So you can grab any of those files. We also have on the website the Ready Room, where we include a bunch of sample op-eds and activations, things that you can go do in your community right now without any direction from us. So feel free to use those resources. And then, of course, we have calls like this, and we've got a great team. Eric, who I'll go to, kind of the heart and soul of our operation. Alex Attell, I think you all met last call, but Alex is our chief of staff who graduated from the University of Chicago Business School, Army veteran, and I scooped him up for a year before he goes and starts his time at Boston or BCG as a management consultant. So he's spending a gap year with us. We've got Seamus Murphy, another University of Chicago big brain, who's running our operation in New York, supporting Unite New York, and is doing a fantastic job with that. We have I'm looking. Oh, Jameson, who is our marketing guru, just does an exceptional job. Casts a much bigger brand than we probably are as an organization, and makes us look good at every turn. And then we've got some folks on the ground. Tony Haas, I don't think he's on the call, but he's going to be running our Colorado campaign. We have a full-time campaign manager in Idaho, and we're about to bring on a full-time campaign manager in Alaska. So, and then we're using the SkillBridge program, which has gone live. So we've got the DoD transition program, which has been a great asset for us as well. Got a lot of applicants coming in through that. So building out the team, trying to put people on the ground everywhere where there's sort of a funded campaign. And as always, we just want to continue to grow these calls, get more people, more diversity, more political diversity, more race diversity, age diversity, gender diversity. We need more women in this movement. So please do spread the word to your networks, get your plus ones involved, and let's continue to have some success. Oh, Brandon Moody, also in Nevada. I don't know if Brandon's on the call, but he's helping lead the effort there. He's been fantastic. So those are some of the hot spots. I know I mentioned a lot of states in the West, but there is activity across the country, and just grateful to see you all. So with that, Eric, I'll kick it over to you to get us into it.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. And thanks again for everyone for being here. It's really exciting. As Todd said, Alex and I were both in DC last week, Friday night. Alex is DC based. Mike Cantwell was there. DC and a few other volunteers for the world premiere of Majority Rules. I said it's not every day that a reform nerd gets to go to a film screening about a documentary that makes the case for these reforms just so much better than I can. And so that's going to be coming to a theater near you, or if not, United America is using this really cool hosting platform called Kinema. I'd never heard of it. I feel like as an old guy, I'm learning about some new app or new third-party vendor every single day. Kinema. Don't ask me to spell it, but what it allows you to do is to download the movie, and you can host a screening in your backyard with 5 people. You can host a Zoom screening, which is something maybe we'll do later this year. And then Seamus, we'll kick it over to you in a little bit, but Seamus is going to be helping to host Majority Rules and Veterans in New York City 1 week from Friday. So we'll share out those details, and we can try to fill up the cinema in the East Village next week. And then it's going to hopefully go on the road all over the country. I'm going to try to do a screening here in St. Louis. Todd's going to work on a screening in Chicago. So it's a really powerful tool to have to use to share the story that momentum is really building. This is not, a bunch of, it's not 10 people in a room thinking about, oh, how can we make our elections better? This is thousands of organizations and thousands, hundreds of thousands of really good people who are fed up with the status quo, and they're doing something about it. And that's all of you here today. So, Todd, feel free to direct me, because I feel like you did a really good job of kind of giving an overview of all the states. As Todd mentioned, it's going to be, depending on how you count it and how you count the reforms, but 7 states plus Washington, D.C. are looking to join Alaska in reforming their primary elections. 7 states plus Washington, D.C. this year, voters will be voting on it. So that's amazing. That's amazing progress. And we're feeling really good about those campaigns. But yeah, Todd, do you have any direction?
No, I think let's just get into updates. If you have questions at any point, just raise your hand, and we're happy to say more. But I'm also eager to get everyone else's voice in this. So, Brian, can I pick on you? Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Oh, Rick, you're muted, brother. You're muted.
Hear me now?
We got you, Rick.
Okay. Eric, quick point. Relatively speaking, you're not old. Believe me, as I get older, I get perspective, and you got a long ways to go, which is why you've got all the energy. But the more substantive point is, Todd and Eric, how up are you on where things are in Nebraska, which I just went through a week or two ago?
Feel free to share more. And for those of you who don't know Rick, you want to talk about inspiration. He is literally walking across our country, driving, walking mostly across our country to raise awareness about how broken our system is and the reforms. But Rick, you probably have a more recent update from Nebraska than we do, so please go ahead.
So there's a group of organizations spread across Nebraska. One of the biggies is Civic Nebraska. They're a relatively new, last 15 years nonprofit that's already got 100 staff. It's very impressive, a lot of clout. But they are with other organizations in the very early stages of reaching out to Nebraska organizations to get agreement on what they think they can use a citizen initiative to raise. But it is clearly focused on open primaries and for top 4 or 5 voting. And I think it's pretty likely that that's going to come together, although they're not publicly saying that yet. So you got another one that's, sort of a year or 2 behind what you're already talking about, and that's good. That's it.
That's great. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, and Nebraska is unique, has a unique political culture with the Unicam and some other things going on. So yeah, and Civic Nebraska has done a great job grabbing that issue set. So thanks for the update on that. Mike Cantwell, let me do this, Mike. Well, actually, I'll go to you first, and then Brian, I'm going to come to you for an Alaska update.
All right. Hi, everybody. It was great to see everybody at the Majority Rules premiere. It was like a who's who of political reformers. It was super awesome. Great to see Eric. Lots of great things are happening here in Arlington. We had the Arlington County Board primary being conducted by ranked choice voting on Tuesday. Everything that they say about ranked choice voting is happening, right? So people who may have been told to wait their turn before are now running. People have to try to get people to vote for them first, but then mark them down as second. And then a Marine Corps veteran, JD Spain, is currently at 32% of the vote. And I know him very well, and he is in support of ranked choice voting. So we're going to the second round, the third round, and probably the fourth round. It's all really exciting. And it is being delayed until Friday because guess what? They have to wait for the mail-in ballots from, probably a lot of overseas veterans that are waiting for that. So we're seeing it in real time. I met the new CEO of Fair Vote at the premiere on Friday. I invited her to tag along with me as around the polls in Arlington. She actually is an Arlington resident, so she got to hear firsthand what the voters think about ranked choice voting. Thanks.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. That's awesome. Thanks for the update. Good things happening there in the DMV. Brian, can we get an update from you on what's going on in Alaska? Alaska, just to set the stage, is the only state that has implemented the Final Four election model that we think is really powerful. So it's in my view, it's critical that we just continue to support Alaska. So Brian, what's the picture up there now?
Well, you're right. It is going to be a fight. So the initiative has been certified, the removal. And oddly enough is ballot measure 2, which was what the ranked choice voting initiative was in 2020, was also ballot measure 2. So that's kind of a bit confusing to be able to do. Now we're a no on 2 group instead of yes on 2. So that's kind of odd. But so anyway, that's moving forward. We are kind of putting together our initiative and about to roll out some publicity on our no on 2 group. So that's moving forward. The other thing that's actively going on is the litigation against ballot measure 2. There was a number of problems with the voter signatures, the voter signature books being left out on tables with no, unsupervised in different places, and it was not a very well run program. But they got enough signatures, so we are challenging a number of those. That, I think, hearing is going to be next week, the evidentiary hearing on that. I suspect a certain number of big signatures are going to be thrown out, but it's just a question of whether it's going to be enough. I mean, there's got to be a certain number of signatures, and then in Alaska, there's got to be a certain number of signatures from each voting district, and that's really the issue. If they can get some signatures thrown out from enough voting districts, I think it's got to be 30 of 34, something like that, then potentially it could be, they could say, well, you can try again, but not this year. So, I mean, we're hopeful, but I don't think we're greatly hopeful because most judges want to let people vote. That's, they don't like to throw things out. So we'll see what happens. But that's what's going on. Like I say, we're now starting to gear up our kind of organization. Now that we have an official initiative number, we can say no on 2, and we're starting to roll some of those things out now.
That's great.
Thanks, and I
Brian.
think we're looking forward to having somebody from VAV come up. I know there's some discussion of, we were talking about it at another event last week, trying to use some of the veterans folks in Wasilla, because Wasilla is that area up in the valley is the largest growing area in Alaska, but a lot of pretty conservative folks up there. And having a military structured presence, a veteran structured presence up there, I think is something that could be really useful.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We actually just had a call with Julie today, Brian, on that very thing. And so we're trying to send reinforcements and source some veterans who can then be in the the commercial campaign, the TV campaign in Alaska. So
Right.
we'll probably be in touch with you on that because we
Good.
want to definitely deliver on that. Good. Thanks, Brian. Let's go to Stan. Can I pick on you next, and then Ray in Arizona?
Sure. We've just had the Republican convention in Idaho, and it was kind of remarkable for the fact that they didn't allow press, that it was pretty much closed up. And they were pretty straightforward about why that was, because they didn't want their plans for how they're going to torpedo the ranked choice voting initiative to leak out ahead of time. So we have that to look forward to. They've announced that they have a dream team that's working on things, and then they also came out and castigated the people who were trying to take over the Republican Central Committee and unhorse Dorothy Moon as the chairperson. On July 2nd, on the Capitol steps, we are going to assemble all of the organizations that were involved in the initiative and basically form a bucket brigade and pass the certified signatures up the steps and into the Secretary of State's office for certification. And it'll be official on July 2nd that we get certification. So we're all looking forward to that. So we're just also trying to put together our campaign for the fall, trying to balance, getting the information out there and fighting the disinformation against people short attention span. And we're trying to front load our information campaign, or rather backload it towards the couple of weeks prior to the actual election, so that it's fresh in people's minds. So that's a work in progress. So we'll see what they come up with. I think that we're pretty prepared. We have our bunker buster squad working on the disinformation campaign and keeping track of all of the foo-for-all that's being floated. And we're trying to anticipate it so that we're not being strictly reactionary. But we'll see how our media campaign goes. We're flying some trial balloons, and we've done a couple of mailings that have all resulted in an increase in new memberships to the organization. So that's kind of where we are right now.
That's great. Thanks, Stan. And you all have done such a great job cultivating a lot of volunteers, and the signature collection effort. Did you guys pay for any signatures, or was that all volunteer driven?
I don't want to misspeak, but to the best of my knowledge, it was all volunteer driven. We didn't have any paid signature gathering at all. So we've thought that avoiding that would avoid any challenge in that regard. So we were successful there. So we got more than enough signatures, and more than enough were certified. So I'm expecting that we'll get final certification on the 2nd of July.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Thanks, Stan. Ray, can you give us an update from what's going on in Arizona? And then Smith, I'm gonna go to you.
Absolutely. I want to shout out my fellow Arizonan on the call, Donna Davis, who's on the executive board for Better Ballot. Donna, after I share my thoughts on Make Elections Fair, please feel free to jump in with anything that's going on from Better Ballot. The primary ballot initiative here in Arizona is the Make Elections Fair ballot initiative, which is an open primaries initiative. It is not in and of itself a Final Five initiative, although it has the option for the legislature to have a Final Five provision in that if the legislature so chooses. We are coming up on the end game of signature gathering on that. All indications are right now is that it will get enough signatures to qualify for the ballot in November. The Final signatures will come in this week and next week. Right now, the organization has shifted its focus to getting folks to submit what are called petition argument statements. Arizona has a mechanism that allows ordinary citizens to submit statements for and against citizen initiatives, and those actually get published in voter guides. So the Make Elections Fair folks are gathering those. So I've done ballot arguments in favor of the Make Elections Fair ballot and against a legislative, two legislative initiatives, one which would basically lock in the partisan primary system, the other one which would effectively cripple the citizen initiative by requiring a certain percentage in each of the counties to qualify for an initiative. And because of how spread out and rural parts of Arizona are, that would basically totally kneecap the initiative process. So those are all in. Eric, I see your note on submitting ballot arguments. That's awesome. Appreciate the supporting fires. That's it from me. Donna, anything that you want to add?
Better Ballot is our final 5 initiative, and we're kind of waiting to see what happens with Make Elections Fair, I think, but we're out there really trying to fight against those 2 ballot initiatives that you discussed, Ray. So I think that's our big thing right now, is just trying to get away from the things that can cripple any of the things that we want to do. So I would say that's about it for right now.
Thanks, Donna, for that, and Ray. Yeah, and we are seeing, we should predict, to your point, Stan, we should expect opposition. It is coming, and it's getting louder. So defensive strategies is now a big part of the national conversation. Even in Colorado, where there's a ballot measure moving forward for final 5 voting, there was a Democratic state senator who introduced a provision at the 11th hour without discussion, less than 1 minute of debate at the final hour of a omnibus elections bill where the state legislature convened. She slipped in and it basically said, the state cannot implement any changes to the election model until it's been validated in 12 municipalities over the course of 3 cycles, which is like a practical impossibility, and municipality, and maybe I'm getting the facts wrong, which is not uncommon, but Eric, you'll correct me. But basically a procedural hurdles that de facto push back implementation for at least 12 years. So if they can't fight us on the letter, they'll fight us on, technicalities. And so whether it's introducing arbitrary implementation hurdles or trying to mess with the citizen initiative process itself, or choosing not to fund, efforts that help make implementation easier, there's all kinds of dirty tricks that we can expect to kind of come at us. And it's going to come from both the Republican and Democratic Party. I mean, that is very clear. It's wherever power is under threat, you kind of can expect the opposition. Eric, were you going to add?
Yeah, no, that's right on, Todd. And that's the story that I tell to everyone is it's whatever party is in control in any given city or state, they will reflexively oppose these reforms. So the number one myth about ranked choice voting is that it's a Trojan horse to get Democrats elected in red states. So I say to my conservative friends in Missouri, so then tell me, why is the Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. suing the campaign to use ranked choice voting in Washington, D.C.? It's whoever's in power. And we need to tell that story over and over again to counteract these myths and misinformation that's being spread.
Yeah. In some ways, on a global way, I was sort of happy that at least it was a progressive Democratic state senator that was torpedoing the thing in Colorado, because it is that counter narrative to this idea that somehow Democrats, that this is a Trojan horse for Democrats. Is like, absolutely not. Our biggest battles are in some of these Democratic strongholds against, progressive Democrats that fear, frankly, having to win a majority contest. The particular state senator in Colorado has not had a competitive race since 2018. And she is probably not widely popular, but she can eke through a closed Democratic primary and kind of play that game and win. So it absolutely does threaten, or at least make more competitive her own reelection. So that is for politicians not something they're interested in. So let me go to you, Seamus, next, since I said it, and then Josh, over to you for an update on Utah.
Thanks, Todd. So Seamus Murphy here. Finished classes and joined the team in late May. Right away attended New York State or United New York's lobby days in Albany, where we met with state senators, assemblymen, and staff over 2 days to advocate for their More Choices, More Voices, More Choices campaign before the legislative session ended. They had 2 bills with assembly sponsors for term limits for statewide office for governor, lieutenant governor, and comptroller. Comptroller's been in office longer than I've been alive, but it's New York State for you. And then they also have a assembly sponsor for instant runoff and ranked choice voting. They'll be looking to get those in front of senators, state senators next year. They're driving citizen ballot initiatives, increased ballot access, and nonpartisan primaries. Additionally, been integrating with our state partners via established meeting cadences with Unite New York and Final 5 Voting NYC. And then upcoming events. So the Majority Rules film premiere in New York and happy hour. So Friday, June 28th, we'll have a happy hour at the Old Town Bar and Restaurant, and the film premiere in Village East Theater after that. And then right immediately following that, Saturday, I'm going up to Ithaca to petition for ranked choice voting to get on the ballot there and for local elections. So they're looking to get 800 signatures by the end of June to get, like I said, ranked choice voting and open primaries on the local ballot for November. Additionally, I'll be reaching out to I see some of the folks from New York State on the call. I'll be reaching out to try to get a monthly meeting cadence going. And if you have any questions or want to get involved, you can email me or reach out on LinkedIn. Thanks for the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Seamus. You've completely hit the ground running, and even before your start date, you were like on a plane to New York. So thanks for doing everything that you're doing. It's having a big impact already. Josh Daniels, a true expert.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on this point about partisan arguments for and against ranked choice voting, just to kind of underscore that point. You know, I'm a longtime political insider on the right and talked at length to some people inside. And a couple of notable examples people should be familiar with is that in Alaska, where, yes, supposed conservative Sarah Palin loses the, congressional race, and that's one example. Well, many people are maybe familiar with the reality is that she was deeply unpopular in her state. She actually largely didn't live in the state. She was dating somebody in Lower Manhattan and had been away from the state for a long time. There was a lot of controversy and personal conflict that she had with different political tribes in the state. And so by no means was this an example of moderates beating conservatives because of ranked choice voting. Sarah Palin in many ways was her own worst enemy. But partisans in Alaska, the Republican Party, which has generally been the majority party, although it's a very purple state, they actually sort of widened their majority in the state house. And a lot of Republican insiders are happy with ranked choice voting. Maybe far-right conservatives aren't happy because Lisa Murkowski, as a sort of notable moderate, was returned to the U.S. Senate. But by no means was the partisan effect of ranked choice voting really that significant. And then a really notable success for Republicans is Virginia, where Glenn Youngkin, a very conservative candidate, he won the Republican nomination under ranked choice voting. And because he consolidated a more centrist coalition of Republican voters, even as a pretty notable conservative, he went on to win the governorship and switched that state to Republican for the first time in a while. So I just don't think it's fair to say that ranked choice voting always advantages or disadvantages one party or the other. I think there's good examples on both sides where at the end of the day, it just makes sure that the majority coalition in the state, whatever that looks like, if it's a purple-red coalition, a purple-blue coalition, or all blue or all red, whatever the underlying majority is, they're going to win. It's that simple. So we've used it for a long time in Utah, off and on in our party nomination process, although we're a solid red state, so there's not a distinct partisan impact there.
That's great, Josh. Thanks for those insights. And you guys are in a little bit of a defensive posture in Utah, right? Isn't there a desire to pull back RCV,
Yeah.
which has been adopted in a number of municipalities?
Yep, we are. So we have essentially ranked choice voting in nonpartisan local elections where you have multiple candidates in like a city council race. And our far right voices in Utah have fought against ranked choice voting largely because they recognize that ranked choice voting undermines extreme voices. And because they have extreme voices and they know that they have outsized influence, they see ranked choice voting as a threat. So, you know, this upcoming year of 2025 will be the last year that municipalities can use ranked choice voting unless the legislature acts to extend that option. And there are some things going on in the state, some conversations about following the lead of, you know, a Nevada or an Idaho with either a legislative change that might incorporate ranked choice voting or potentially an initiative. So there's a lot of things in flux, and definitely we're playing some defense right now.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, thanks, Josh. Any other folks want to give updates to your states?
Yeah,
Things
I
for the good of
will.
the order.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon, please.
Hey everyone, Brandon, state lead in Nevada, and just wanted to give just a couple updates and a hello. I'm so excited to really be going deeper with this. I've been working on the ballot question 3 initiative for about 6 months with youth groups, doing some video for events and other awareness. And now I'm here in this capacity. I'm excited. And on our end, it's really just about ballot question 3 and getting out just the education, because the way it's in Nevada is that it needs to pass twice. It already passed in 2022. So what we're trying to do is create these weekly events online that are just educational, just so that we can begin that process. Let's assume the frame here. We've already voted yes on this. We're already ready to go. And everyone's biggest complaint is either going to be like, I don't know how this works. It's too complicated kind of stuff. So we're just being on the offensive with that, with a consistent drumbeat of this kind of these kind of events. And we'll adjust and tweak and peak as as we do them, but that's the idea. And in terms of events, Vegas, where I'm located, has most of the population and most of these amazing conferences. We got Freedom Fest coming in next month, July 10th to the 13th. We'll be making a presence there to highlight a big event that will be happening during that, which is going to be free and fair elections. Foundations doing a big debate. And there's been some cool media coming out kind of previewing that as like a big central headlining kind of event of that 4-day conference. So it's going to be really cool to partner with them and also get people going out. So those two things, and we have some awesome partners in Nevada, and we have such a wide variety of people. And so everybody's going to have their different style for going about and finding finding volunteers. But my main message to everyone was if you have certain people that you can convert hearts and minds, that's great. But like, first thing you can do is just get people who are unawares into the aware, call them on this kind of thing, and be the first to do that with many people. I think that's just going to be really effective and what I'm going to focus on a lot this month. So thank you guys. I appreciate being a part of such an awesome team.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Nevada's critical. We've passed it once. We've spent a lot of money to do that. We've got to pass it again. So thanks for your leadership. On a personal note, I have to jump to another event. Actually, I got I'm doing my time distance. So I'm going to pass the con to you, Eric, and then Claudia, over to you. But great to see everybody. Claudia, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Todd. I just got back from a trip overseas, so I don't have an update, but I've got a colleague on board here, Frank Smith from New Mexico. He's a veteran. He's running for office, and I wanted to give him a minute to introduce himself to this wonderful, effective team. Frank?
Okay, thank you, Claudia. I just wanted to say that, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I'm running for the State House of Representatives here in New Mexico, House District 23. And I'm glad that I want to thank Claudia for inviting me to join in this Zoom call, and I just appreciate the opportunity. And thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Thank you for joining us. and good luck with your race. We, you know, on a personal level, most of us here probably know people who are running for office, and love supporting, you know, fellow veterans personally. And so feel free, Claudia, you can share Frank's information with me or get us connected. But Steve Huff in Florida.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Not a whole lot to report, and I won't take up too much time, getting into the weeds. But as you well know, the Florida League of Women Voters really torpedoed our effort in 2020 to adopt top 2 open primaries at that time. Since then, I've reached out to a friend of mine that's the president of the Jacksonville chapter, also joined the league, and she submitted to their voting rights committee back in the fall when we were partnering with open primaries to close the write-in loophole. The board unanimously approved support, but they never did anything active to contact legislators. So now someone that's on our advisory board at Rank My Vote Florida is, and also our team lead for the Speakers Bureau, is first vice president of the Sarasota chapter of the League of Women Voters. So she's been communicating with the co-presidents and about, them being more active in, supporting open primaries. It's still one of their, one of their platforms on their website that they do support open primaries. They were just opposed, to the top 2. We're waiting on Andy Sterner, of course, to see what he's going to put together. But in the meantime, we're working on the League of Women Voters. Hopefully, by the time the next initiative rolls around, there'll be support. As a matter of fact, the ladies from the Sarasota chapter had breakfast this morning with the main president, the one that actually calls the shots. Had breakfast with her this morning, so I'm waiting to find out, how that went. But other than that, talking about veterans that are running for office, I saw the interview that Paul Reichhoff did with Shelane Etchison, just prior to, you posted that link, I believe, on LinkedIn, and she's got an incredible resume. And I sent her a few bucks after seeing that, and I would just encourage all us fellow veterans that if there's veterans running for office, if not in your state or your districts, there's some good candidates out there, and I'd encourage you to send a few bucks their way. That's all I got.
Great. Awesome, Steve. Thank you so much. And Steve has been a reform warrior and been working on this longer than I have. So thanks, Steve. Rick, and if anyone else has any updates, please either raise your hand or let me know in the chat. And we'll probably wrap up a little bit early today, give you a little bit of time back. But Rick, go ahead, and you're muted right now. But
okay, hear me okay?
Gotcha. Lima Charlie.
I just wanted to add to all the state discussions that we have a hugely powerful response when you get political party pushback. And it's simply that they're not doing their job. And the argument is, if you look at the state constitutions or the federal one, Colorado's, for example, mimics the preamble of the US Constitution. And in pertinent part, it says that we the people set up this constitution to elect representatives to promote our general welfare of all of us. Now, doesn't that, among all the other issues, include setting up the political system to be fair, equitable, inclusive, and competitive? And when they push back against things that clearly are serving citizens, if it gives the majority of us a bigger say in the process, you can make a very strong argument they're just not doing their job. And the only caveat is be sure to point out that there are legislators that are trying to do their job, but if they're not in a majority and the institution won't act, the institution isn't doing its job. So that's all.
Well said, Rick. Well said. Chris in South Carolina, and then we'll kick it over to Alex, our chief of staff.
Yeah, so we just had our primaries here in South Carolina, and the Freedom Caucus folks here in Deep Red picked up a couple of more seats. And they booted out some very senior mainstream Republicans. And then one of their main pillars is to close all the primaries. So we're going to be in a rearguard action down here, not to be unexpected. That being said, because we just finished 1 2-year cycle, we're getting ready to go into the next 2-year cycle. We still have a bipartisan group to reintroduce instant runoff voting for our municipalities. We're in a crawl, walk, run phase here in South Carolina, just trying to bite off a little bit to see if we can get people doing that. But they're going to reintroduce it, so we're going to fight on 2 fronts. But it'll be an uphill fight. Public service announcement for all you in the Southeast, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina. Principals First, one of our partners here in South Carolina, to get ranked choice voting done. We're hosting a dinner down in Charleston. Great time in Charleston every time you come down. But we're going to be at Joe Riley Park. It's a minor league baseball team where the River Dogs play. We've got there from 5 to 8. And then after that, the Charleston Symphony Orchestra is going to be on the field doing their 4th of July thing and popping fireworks. So if you're in driving distance of Charleston, come on down Saturday the 29th and have a good time and meet some fellow travelers and see how we can do better and make a statement here in the state of South Carolina that, you know what, there are people here who want ranked choice voting.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris, and thanks for your leadership. And there's a lot of irony in the Freedom Caucus trying to close primaries, right? I think I just heard from Alaska, their new tagline for the No on 2 campaign is going to be protect voter freedom, right? Because the voters have more choices. The voters, independents can fully vote, fully participate, and the 2 parties want to take that away. Alex, what do you have for us, brother? And then I'll close it up unless anyone has any last minute alibis.
Yeah, so I'll just end on a good note. One thing I want to re-ping a million times over is that there's a lot of momentum right now. No one on this call needs to be told that, but it's everywhere. It's in the national news. It's being talked about in a lot of circles that I walk into. I worked for I worked for a guy who's been in Congress quite a bit of time who, didn't want to talk about this stuff 6 months ago and is now approaching me about it. Things are changing, and it's changing quick. And something that I like to think about, Nick Troiano, Eric, I know you have a high opinion of him. Everyone does in this movement. And something he says is, in the history of election reform, it happens slow and then all at once. It's starting to feel like it's all at once right now. So with that said, I'd like to, first of all, thank all the state leads. So for a while, as you build an organization, or I'm new to it, but in my past, as you build an organization, there's a lot of momentum in getting people in, and then you got to figure out what to do with them. And that's the tough part, is like, how do you engage your volunteers and give them something to do so they continue to stay engaged? That's kind of a problem of the past, because the momentum is here and events are popping up. We're putting state leads into place in different areas that are really accelerating our presence in those states and putting calendars together. So there's no shortage of opportunities to get involved this year. And then the final thing I'll say is I got to re-ping majority rules. Okay, we talked about it earlier. It's coming to a city near you, we're hoping, or through the app. You can stream it at home. But I think the hard part of this movement is getting people to understand, right? We talk about it all the time, like, how do you educate? Once someone understands it, even at a basic form, they're pretty much all for it, because if they're a logical person, it makes sense. This movie, but it's hard when you get into the mechanics of explaining this to get that simple message across. This movie does that. It gets a simple message across in an emotional way that would turn, even the people that, even if you had a staunch person on either side of the aisle that was watching this movie and was asked after why they thought that this system should not be implemented, they would have a very difficult time answering that question. That's what I'll say. It's a powerful movie. Please take it, watch it, and then show it to people, because it'll help. That's all I got. Back to you, Eric. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and thanks to Alex has added a tremendous amount of horsepower to our small headquarters team behind the scenes. So thanks to Alex. Thanks again to Seamus Brandon, Tony Haas, our first SkillBridge fellow. You know, so many great people, and every person on this call, every person who served and decided I'm going to continue serving by joining this movement. We can't thank you enough. We're building something that is going to change the trajectory of our country for the better. And you know, you all are on the tip of this spear. And yeah, just again, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing Kevin Miller, Mark Faust in Wisconsin. Will be at the Braver Angels Summit in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Braver Angels is one of the 10, 20, 30 national partners that we're closely affiliated with, and they're hosting their convention in Kenosha because it's halfway between Chicago and Milwaukee, where the DNC and the RNC are going to take place. So anyways, thank you again so much. We'll be in touch. We're always here if you have questions or you need help with anything or want to bounce ideas off of us. We're always here for you. So let's keep pressing onward and have faith that right makes might.